Howdy, my people, or whoever happened to have clicked on this thingy. So I'm still potentially moving to East Tennessee. But I noticed that like the center of my lips are not the same as the center of my teeth. It's kind of freaking me out. I don't know why. Alright. Basically, alright, so I'm potentially moving to East Tennessee. I gave my 30 days notice almost 30 days ago here. So I think I have like wine in my teeth. So that's cool. Wine on my lips. I just got back from talking to a nurse who is on unpaid leave for not taking the Schlemanamana. And she was reporting that there was a lot more adverse effects on Mexican Americans compared to other demographics. I mean, this is basically Santa Cruz County. This is like a very white county for like coastal California. It's like the whitest county probably in like south of like Humboldt or something. But there's a significant amount of Mexican Americans here, Latinos, and so she was telling me she worked at basically the main hospital in this county, or I'd say the foremost hospital of the county. And so yeah, that's what she's noticed, which makes, fits with all the other reports that basically American Indians suffer the most from Schlemanema, the thing, and then Latinos second most, African Americans third most, Black people third most, and then, and probably Asian Americans are, I would guess, suffering a lot as well from them. So that might confirm certain theories that some of us may have had about this. Anyway, it's just terrible, what's happening. Like, I don't necessarily have the power to explain how terrible it is what's happening. I mean, it's like terrible things have been happening like throughout my life, before my life, like the whole modern age of empire. I mean, maybe you could really say throughout history, terrible things have been happening. Terrible things have been done by the elites. And that really goes back to the beginning of civilization, like the beginning of, the earliest known written records that we can translate, which are the Sumerian cuneiform tablets from like 3000 BC. Like, they're already talking about slaves and, like huge hierarchy, gulf between the people and those with power, those who like control things. But so I'm not one of those. Like, I don't like the phrase New World Order, because if it's used to imply like a world order in which the masses are exploited and oppressed and disempowered, then it's really not new. It's not new in that sense. It might be worse. It might be even more of, even more exploitative than the quote unquote old world order. But, I don't want anybody to ever confuse me for a person who likes the way things are, or likes the way things have been for the last, I don't know, millennium or anything like that. No, I do not. I have no respect or affection or tolerance for how things have been. Things have been disgusting. Things have been terrible. And that's why things are so bad now. It didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of the world order that we already had. The world order that we already had made this all possible. Like, imagine like a communist like me, like a democratic liberal communist like myself had, or let's say the democratic liberal communist like myself had been in the majority, which I would argue that we are in the majority when you get past the semantics. But let's say that we actually had power. We could if we had power for any amount of time, like if we were in power now, then like what I want for the world is basically everybody to have a house, everybody to have land, everybody to have an organic garden, everybody to have an orchard, everybody to be self-sufficient. Like if you plant an orchard for somebody, and if you plant a year-long garden, because you can, like if people don't live, especially if people live in relatively temperate zones, or like I live in California, right? I live in southern northern California, I guess you could say, the southern part of northern California. And so here we could grow like anything, or we could grow most things. We could grow year-long. If I could ever afford to rent anything or buy anything that actually included soil and stuff, that's what I would do. As it is, I just rent rooms and houses. But in theory, if I had was able to, I could plant a year-long garden here, and I could plant sprouts that could be harvestable in days, and I could plant all manner of other things, fruit trees, vegetables, whatever, grains. You can plant a year-long garden, and even without using much, if any, canning or curing, you can basically be self-sufficient if you plant enough. And this is I feel like one of the biggest lies, other than the kind of modern biomedical lies that are very damaging, that are disseminated by the mainstream and by the establishment. One of the most damaging lies is the idea that modern industrial society gives people leisure. You know, that like there's people separate societies sometimes into the various stages. Like originally we were hunter gatherers. We didn't have any time to spare because we were just like hunting and gathering all the time. Like what are you doing? Like, are you awake? Okay, hunt and get. You gotta gather and hunt and gather all the time. That's all you can do. You just hunt and gather. And then they developed pastoral nomadic. I mean, this is like a kind of maybe an antiquated view, but the antiquated view is that then they learned how to, they learned animal husbandry. They learned how to domesticate like sheep and cows and stuff like that. So they had a little bit more time, but they still just had to hang out with their flocks all the time. But they had more time on their hands, so they could invent like maybe some stuff and develop civilization. And then they invented, like I'm going by the kind of fourth stage theory that was prominent during the Enlightenment. So it was like hunter-gatherer, pastoral nomadic, and then agricultural. So like basically like the free time afforded by pastoralism, allowed them to develop agriculture according to this theory. This is not like a historical theory, it's not borne out by evidence really, but this is a traditional theory that because there's no real evidence to say whether agriculture came before or after animal husbandry. If anything, it's the reverse. If anything, the evidence points towards agriculture being preceding animal husbandry. But according to this theory, the kind of pastoral nomadic people are kind of civilized but kind of savages, whereas the agricultural people are civilized. I think they're considered, in this semantic paradigm, are considered civilized, whatever that means. But and then next comes commercial, and that's like kind of capitalism. Or I mean, honestly, I would say that from the Scottish Enlightenment scholars who I've mostly followed on this stuff, they can, like Adam Smith, James Robertson or John Robertson, Lord Kames, Francis Hutcheson, David Hume, like they didn't view capitalism as, or in that sense, like the age of commerce, they didn't view that as something that started during the quote unquote industrial revolution in Britain, or that happened as a result of the political kind of more laissez-faire or more libertarian economic policies following the Glorious Revolution of 1688. They viewed these as things that had been the product of, I mean, basically any point in history of like extensive commerce. So, like at this point we can go back to early Sumer, early, Iraq, and we can see evidence of commerce. We can see cuneiform tablets recording commerce, commercial transactions at places like Uruk and Eridu and Shurupak, etc. And so they viewed that in a sense as, I mean, capital, like nowadays we talk about capitalism, but that's a kind of very modern concept in a sense, because like it has very little meaning in a sense. Like honestly, like, or it's very hard to nail down what exactly capitalism means. But in that traditional Enlightenment sense of the age of commerce, that had a more definitive meaning, and that was like basically a society that's focused around commerce. And why am I wearing these things? I don't really need to like see anything. Sight is for losers. Anyway, so like so commerce stretched back to Sumer. You could say like Sumer was capitalist in the sense that it was like a major commercial, especially like the ports like at Eridu or wherever. I mean, probably throughout Sumer there was a lot of trade, and trade was often the engine for like the producing a lot of the cuneiform. Like there potentially, they say it may be the reason cuneiform developed as much as it did. So I'm not exactly sure about that, but trade, like trade has been there for a long time, and like trade can exist without it being as evil and as corrupt as it is now, I would say. Like there can be, I mean, trade I think is a good thing. It's one of the best things. It's maybe the best thing. Trade, like one sentient being encountering another sentient being and saying, I have this to offer you. I'm willing to, it's like symbiosis. It means like instead of one being a parasite on the other, saying like, I have something to offer you and you have something to offer me, so we're going to trade. And of course, like selfless love is great, and the extent to which we can take care of everybody regardless of what they quote unquote have to offer. Because when we're born, what do we have to offer? We're basically nothing. I mean, I guess we might be aesthetically like cute or something, like, but basically we have we just need, we're just in need. And the only way that we make it to adulthood is because people love us and care for us for free. There's nothing we can really do in return for them. I mean, they can hope that like somehow you'll grow up and do good by them when you have power to, if you ever do. But like in general, it's a relatively selfless act to like care for a child. But without that selfless act, none of us would exist. I think that should humble some people who try to pretend that the universe is such a meritocracy, and that if anybody's suffering or failing or dying or something, that they must have done something wrong. But it's like, we would all fail and we would all like suffer and die if we weren't supported, as children, as babies, as infants, as children, and often much further on, we all like depend on each other, and Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Like, maybe there could be a chance that a baby could, like, maybe 1 in a million babies could somehow learn to survive on their own, but probably not. Not unless they were like adopted by some other species that was like kinder than us, that actually adopted by wolves or something. So it's like welfare, like people hate on handouts. They're like, oh, I don't, handouts are bad and charity is bad. Like, a lot of leftists hate on charity. Like, yeah, there's a lot of charity that's like PR and just tax write-offs and whatever. But charity as a concept, don't hate on charity, because charity is like everything, like charity and symbiosis are everything. And symbiosis is trade. Like I'm a communist, like I'm a communist. I call myself a communist because, that's again also like a fairly vague term, indeterminate, but it tends to mean, well, I'll just say that in terms of land and resources, natural resources, I believe we all have an equal claim on every inch of land and resources, basically. I mean, maybe you have a more better claim on the land where you live and grew up or something, but in general, we basically all have, the land didn't have like a tag on it with anybody's, didn't have a land title like engraved into the soil or anything. That's all made up. That's all like just purely by choice. And so with land, I believe in equality. I believe everybody should have an equal amount of land at their disposal, you could say. But it should not be at their disposal completely, in the sense that like they should have no right to pollute it. They should have no right to, ruin it in any way. Like I believe in the American, pre-Columbian Amerindian philosophy that we belong to the land. The land doesn't belong to us. So, that's, I mean, people say, there's a lot of like trinkets that have these kind of like ancient Native American like sayings written on them, and people are, but I don't know how many people realize like that's literally what we need politically. Like politically, we need to look to the Native Americans. That's it. We have to. There's no, I mean, there are other, directions we should look as well, but absolutely like the American Indians, certainly of North America, and I think throughout, like when it comes to property relations and the environment, it's not just like, oh yeah, that's cool, it sounds cool or something. It's like, no, we need that. We need that if we are to survive, if we are to be sustainable in any way. Like we need to do what they were doing and what they were saying. Anyway, I kind of forgot like what this was supposed to be about. Little baked, but I'm gonna go for a big finish, which I talk about. I don't know, like, well, no, I'll talk about my friend, my best friend, just died. His name is Terry, and he was an amazing man. I learned I learned a lot from him. I wasn't ready to stop learning from him, you know, like I felt like he had still so much to teach me. Anyway, um, like he was so truthful and wise and intelligent that like I even wonder if the fucking feds did not like poison him or something because um but anyway, he was you know, he was a historian. He was a black historian who corrected a lot of the falsehoods that have been perpetrated by you know, those in power, by the mainstream. And you know, he taught me a lot. Um, and he just, I don't know, like he gave me faith in humanity on a level that like nobody else honestly did. So I don't know. I'm left with, you know, uh, all this respect for somebody, and I just wish I could tell it to, you know, say it to him. But anyway, like he he taught me about Egypt, how the Egyptian pharaohs were black and ancient Egyptians were black. My stupid ass did not even really realize um, how, or well, whatever. But for whatever reason, I did not really realize. Like, I didn't realize how whitewashed Egyptian history was, and he showed me before I went to Egypt, so that when I went there, I had preparation to see the truth, to see like, oh wait, all the like really ancient painted art shows basically black people, black, black African people, and but he was, you know, of course, way ahead of me on that, and on a lot of things, and I just, I just, I don't know. I just wish, like, he was just, I would say, he was the person we could least afford to lose, and you know, yeah, wish the best for everybody that knew him and loved him, and I'm just grateful, you know, that I got to know him. It's like basically like the best friend that I've had in my life, like the person that I can't point to somebody else that I knew that I could trust as much implicitly. Um, but yet I knew him just only a few years, maybe 3 years, 4 years, or three. You know, not long enough at all. So anyway, all right, that's my video. Take care, everybody, and yeah, good luck.